WWE, you had one job with this pay-per-view. Literally only one job. I didn't care about anything else on the card. Nothing. I don't think anybody did. I don't think anybody was truly invested in anything else on this card. Maybe Becky and Sasha, but I said from the get-go, Fiend needs to walk out of Hell in a Cell as the WWE Universal Champion. I felt that rushing him and Seth to the pay-per-view was too soon. I felt like, you don't need to do it here. But you booked the match. You put them in a Hell in a Cell match. And I said, okay, your hands are tied. The Fiend has to walk out of the pay-per-view with the title. That's just how it is. You booked yourselves into this corner, and now there's only one option you can go with. The Fiend absolutely has to walk out with the title. And if he doesn't, it's a huge mistake on your part. What did they do at this pay-per-view? What the hell happened in that main event? Wow! That was a stunning failure of monumental proportions to such a degree that if I ever see WWE produce a documentary talking about the finger poke of doom or World War III, which I've seen them make fun of a couple of times, or anything from WCW in 2000, if I ever see them make fun of any of that stuff ever again, I will just go, fuck you guys. You had the hottest character in your company ready to win the belt, and you bullshitted your way out of having to do it, and in the process ruined what's supposed to be your top gimmick match, which is the Hell in a Cell match. Now, I could argue that the Hell in a Cell match has been devalued and ruined for the last few years now, especially since they turned it into a pay-per-view. Because now it's like, oh, it's that time of the year, we got to do Hell in a Cell, when it's supposed to be the match that you use when you need it, when the feud really, really calls for it. You're not supposed to do it annually. That's stupid. But they did it, and they've been slowly watering down Hell in a Cell ever since. Wow. But this one... And it's so funny, when I did my preview video, I said, okay, look, it's a Hell in a Cell match. You can't do like a double disqualification or no contest or anything like that. You can't do that here. Somebody pointed out to me, but they did it last year with Braun and Roman, and I was like, oh shit, they did, didn't they? I completely forgot about that, and I'm like, okay, that's a problem. And, it's a match that's supposed to be no disqualification. It's supposed to be two guys locked inside the cell. They enter hell, basically, and one man emerges victorious. That's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to get a definitive winner when you do gimmick matches like this. When I think of, like, if you do this in a ladder match, it would be stupid. If you did it in a steel cage match, even when both men's feet hit the floor at the same time, they just restart the match. Because it's like, look, we need a winner in this thing, because that's the type of match we booked. When you do something like this in a match like Hell in a Cell, it just ruins the gimmick. And that's pretty much what they did here. They absolutely destroyed Hell in a Cell and the legacy of Hell in a Cell forever. Like, they should just get rid of the match. Like, just stop doing it. You've ruined it. You ruined it, and I'm leaving. Oh my God, I could not believe how bad that match turned out, especially the finish. Now, I'm not going to bother talking about any other match that happened on this show because, to be perfectly honest, I was at Six Flags for most of the day, and by the time I got home, the pay-per-view was already half an hour in progress, and I missed most of Becky versus Sasha, which was supposedly the best match on the show. They peaked with the first match, and I was like, oh shit, well, I missed... I literally turned the TV on just as they were finishing up, and they were entering the finish. I'm like, okay, so I missed the best match, apparently, but... oh my God, the rest of that show is just lifeless filler. Like, there was not one match in the middle of the show that I liked. The tornado tag, I guess, was okay, but it felt like the type of match that I've seen a million times, and like they were just doing the same types of stunts that we always see. But, everything else, it was just lifeless filler. I was just bored out of my skull the entire show. Mostly because these were matches that weren't made until right before the show kicked off, because as I said when I did my preview, they'd only announced 4 matches. But even the matches they announced were boring. Like, I thought Charlotte and Bayley was boring as hell. I thought, like I said, I wasn't that impressed with the tornado tag, and everything else in between was just like Orton and Ali was awful. The 6-man tag was boring. And it had a kind of a shitty DQ finish, but it was in a match I didn't care about anyway. Chad Gable and Baron Corbin I thought might be okay based on the recent matches they had on Raw, but that one fell flat too, even though Gable finally got a win. Everything in the middle of the show was just flat, dull, and uninteresting. So if I go into detail about each match and like break it down like the way most people do pay-per-view reviews, I'm just going to sound repetitive. This match had no life. It had very little story, if any at all, and was just boring, and I was bored the whole time. So, and that pretty much sums up every match in the middle of the show, post Becky and Sasha. And it was a very, very lifeless pay-per-view to me. But I kept watching because I was like, all right, I want to see the Fiend win the title, which I think they're going to do because they kind of have to at this point. They got him over. He's the hottest character in the show, and they're kind of hot-shotting by putting him in this match, but they've done it. I mean, that's it. We're here now. They've done it. They booked themselves into this corner, so they got to do the right thing and put the belt on him. Not only did they not put the belt on him, but we got like the worst Hell in a Cell ever. Like, this thing was a piece of shit. Okay, couple of things. One, don't do the red mood lighting for Bray. It's stupid and he doesn't need it. I remember Kane did that with a couple of his early matches and that didn't stick. Sin Cara did that and it never really caught on. It never works whenever they do it. Just don't do it. It made the match awkward and weird and didn't really work, and you could barely see what was going on. And that was bad. So it wasn't very good to watch aesthetically. Like, it was very unpleasing to watch. Then you get to where Seth makes his comeback, and he starts stomping the Fiend over and over and over and over again. And this whole like finisher spamming thing, Lesnar does it from time to time. Cena did it a lot. Roman does it a lot. It's getting old and stupid and lazy because it feels like you don't know what else to do. And it's like, I feel like these matches are being booked by people that play the video games, where it's just like, yeah, I just build up my specials and just hit it a million times. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's what a lot of these big matches are turning into. And I get that they want to sell the Fiend as indestructible and invincible, but they did it to such a degree that it basically turned everything into a farce. And then we get to where Seth is just hitting him with weapons over and over and over and over again. And finally, he hits him with a sledgehammer, and the referee stops the match. And I'm like, oh, no, don't do this. When I heard that bell ring, I was like, no, you can't do this. They have paramedics enter the cell. They do the stretcher job. And what I thought they were doing, as Seth was beating up the Fiend before the bell, what I thought they were going to do, I thought, okay, Bray's going to come back from the dead, even after like 20 stomps and getting hit with every weapon in the book. He's going to come back from the dead, lock in the mandible claw, and put away Seth, and that'll be it. And he'll walk out with the title. And that's what they did. Seth, he was on the stretcher and Seth was standing over him, and then he came back from the dead and just locked in the mandible claw. And immediately I was like, okay, is the match still going? Please tell me the match is still going. No, the match was over at that point, and the crowd was not happy, and they let WWE know it. Oh my God, that reaction was a thing of beauty. I heard chants of bullshit. I heard chants of AEW, which I'm sure Cody and Jericho, Omega, and the Bucks were all happy to hear about that. I'm sure it's gotten back to them by now. And my personal favorite, restart the match, which, to be perfectly honest, I think The Fiend has a case to complain against the WWE because the match ended in a DQ, and he ended up getting an advantage on Seth that would have helped him win the match. And it's a match where there are no DQs. So how can that be? This is, it's stupid. It's stupid, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. And basically, and I mentioned this on Twitter, this was the ultimate, and I've seen WWE do things like this before, but this was on another level. But this was the ultimate have your cake and eat it too, where it's like, okay, we don't want to take the belt off of Seth, and we don't want to have the Fiend get beat. So we'll do this instead. Here's the problem with that. If you're going to have their first match end in a DQ, don't book them in a Hell in a Cell match. No one forced you to book a Hell in a Cell match. No one tied your hands together and forced you to book a Hell in a Cell match. You already have one Hell in a Cell match with Becky and Sasha. Just go with that. You don't need more than one Hell in a Cell match, and I don't know why you feel like you do, but there was no reason to make this a Hell in a Cell match if this was the match you were going to do. And I even argued, it's like, look, don't even do the match yet. There's plenty of time to let this story build and simmer, and you can save the bigger match down the road. I even came up with ideas to like save it for Survivor Series or even post-Survivor Series if they needed to. But this was just, it's WWE was a slave to their own booking and their own formula, and they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Because it's like, okay, we've got Hell in a Cell coming up, so we have to do a Hell in a Cell match. And we've set up Fiend versus Seth, so we have to do that match at the next pay-per-view. No, you don't, but they think they do. And now it's like, well, we don't want Seth to lose the title, and we don't want the Fiend to get beat, and we booked a Hell in a Cell match, so fuck it. Let's just ruin Hell in a Cell. So really the big loser in this whole thing was the Hell in a Cell gimmick, which is effectively ruined now. 2 years in a row, Hell in a Cell match ends in a no contest. I mean, it's dead as a gimmick. They've ruined it. They've absolutely ruined it as a gimmick. It's no longer going to have the feud-ending, larger-than-life feel to it that it should have, because they've shown that that match is not immune to bullshit endings. And, my God, like, when I think of some of the Hell in a Cell matches in the past, like Taker and Foley and Taker and Shawn, which had Kane's interference, and Cactus and Triple H and Taker, and Shawn and Triple H and Edge and Taker, and all these other ones that they've had, where it's like, dude, those matches never got stopped. What the fuck? Like, this is horrible. I mean, this is absolutely horrible. And again, what it comes down to is like, look, you did not need to book this match. No one forced you to book this match. No one even expected you to book this match. I think most people would have been okay if you just saved this match for later. You didn't have to do it tonight. But you did it, and you put the Hell in a Cell gimmick on it, and it's like, okay. And I said in a previous video, I was like, all right, guys, your hands are tied now. You have to put the belt on the Fiend. You've booked yourselves into this corner. Nope, they're just rewriting the rules as they go, and now we get, like, the worst Hell in a Cell match ever. I mean, Taker Boss Man was bad, and holy shit, that match was bad. This was damaging. This was really, really like a black eye. Like, Taker Boss Man was something that they didn't need to do because it didn't warrant Hell in a Cell, and they just did it just to have Hell in a Cell on the card, which was stupid, but it didn't do any long-term damage. It was just a bad match that didn't need to happen. This did damage. This was awful. Absolutely fucking terrible. And the reaction they got from the crowd was completely deserved. And now I'm wondering, it's like, okay, because we're going to get a rematch from these two. How the fuck, what else can they do now that Hell in a Cell's ruined? Because Hell in a Cell's the biggest one you got. That's your gimmick. So unless you've cooked up some other, like, larger-than-life gimmick match that's bigger than Hell in a Cell, what, you got to do a triple-decker cage now? Are you going to borrow that from WCW? Like, I don't know what you can do that would fit the feud now, because you've effectively ruined the biggest gimmick. And the Fiend is more invincible than The Undertaker now, with all the things he got hit with. So it's like, what can you possibly... You've basically turned this whole thing into a farce. Something that we were excited about, and they just reduced the entire thing to a cartoony farce. And it's stupid, horrible, and I did not like it. So, I would like to take this time to offer my apologies to Impact Wrestling. I said that United We Stand, the WrestleMania weekend show that they did, was the worst pay-per-view of 2019, and it is a horrible show, riddled with production errors and bad matches and audio problems and everything else you could possibly imagine. But that was also a throwaway show that they just did to have a presence WrestleMania weekend without much build-up going into it. So, whatever, it was a throwaway show. This ruined the biggest gimmick match that WWE can offer, which granted, they've been ruining it for years now, but this was the final nail in the coffin. This is like, Hell in a Cell's ruined forever now. So they ruined that, and they took a character that everybody was excited about and reduced him to a farce and didn't put the title on him when they absolutely should have put the title on him. Because, again, you guys booked this. We didn't book it. No one forced you to book it. You did this to yourselves. And, you know, and once they did it, now it's like, all right, we got to find a way to back ourselves out of it instead of just going with what they made. So it's, you know, and I always hate that excuse that's always made where it's like, well, they were kind of in a corner because they didn't want Seth to lose the title and they didn't want The Fiend to lose yet. And I'm like, well, then don't book the fucking match. Like, no one forced them to book the match. And it kind of reminds me, there was a situation in 2008, I believe. Jericho lost the title at one of the Cyber Sundays. And I thought Jericho needed to be the champion heading into WrestleMania. And he lost the title to, I believe, John Cena, if I'm not mistaken. It was either John Cena or Batista. I don't remember which one. And I was like, that's a bad move. They shouldn't do that. And people were defending it. It's like, well, you know, Steve Austin was the special guest referee of the pay-per-view, so they didn't want to send the fans home unhappy. I'm like, who the fuck told them to book a special guest referee, and who the fuck told them... First of all, why does the referee have anything to do with whoever walks out with the belt? I think that's silly. But in any case, it's like, look, then don't book the fucking match. You booked yourselves into that corner. It's like, you're double stupid for booking the situation then to begin with. And that's kind of how I feel here. There's no excuse for this. It's like, oh, but we could keep running with Seth as champion and we can keep the Fiend undefeated and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Just don't book the match. That's how you keep both of those things intact. I would have been perfectly happy with the Fiend facing Kane or squashing somebody. I don't know. Like anybody, anything. I don't care. And I even had the idea, like, look, just put Seth up against AJ Styles or something and have Seth go over. He was feuding with AJ anyway on TV. This was an absolute fiasco, and this pay-per-view was absolutely dreadful. So, again, my apologies to United We Stand, which was a bad show and was originally my pick for worst pay-per-view of the year, but I think we have a new winner. I'm going to give worst pay-per-view of the year to Hell in a Cell 2019. And God help us all if that gets topped. Boy, oh boy, this was awful.